Welcome to The Deep Dive, the show that cracks open the most fascinating sources of wisdom so you can get smarter, faster. Today, we are handing you the shortcut to understanding the one thing that separates financial success from ruin, and let's just say it is not what you think. We're starting this deep dive with a really jarring real-world contrast. So picture this scene. You're a valet in Los Angeles working for a high-end hotel, and there's this regular client, a tech executive, a certified genius who made an astonishing amount of money, very quickly. One afternoon, you watch this executive and his friends take literal gold coins, not chips, not dollars, actual gold coins, and just start skipping them across the Pacific Ocean.
Laughing as they sink, just for fun.
Exactly. Arguing over whose coin makes the biggest splash. The sheer arrogance is just hard to process.
And here's the kicker. Days later, this same executive is inside the hotel, and he accidentally shatters this priceless antique lamp. A simple, clumsy mistake. The manager, totally stressed out, asks him to pay the $500 repair bill.
Which for this guy is nothing.
Less than nothing. So he pulls out this thick brick of cash, throws $5,000 on the table, and just snarls, "Here, now get out of my face."
You have to wonder how long that level of careless contempt for money could possibly last. I mean, even with all his intelligence and wealth. And the answer, as it always is when behavior is that toxic, is not long at all. That tech executive was eventually wiped out. Complete financial disaster. So hold that image. Now contrast it with a life lived completely across the country, in rural Vermont. Meet Ronald Reed.
His Wikipedia entry has maybe the most humble title you could imagine. American philanthropist, investor, janitor, and gas station attendant.
Wow.
Reed lived a quiet life. He never earned much, bought a modest two-bedroom house for $12,000 when he was 38. His passion was fixing old cars and chopping firewood.
So not a genius, definitely not a high earner. Yet when Ronald Reed died in 2014, this modest janitor made international headlines.
It's an incredible statistic. Out of nearly 3 million Americans who died that year, fewer than 4,000 had a net worth over $8 million.
And Ronald Reed was one of them.
He was, and he left his entire fortune to his local hospital and library. And there was no secret, no lottery win, no inheritance.
So how did he do it?
He just saved whatever small amount he could, invested it consistently in stable, blue chip companies, and then he did the hardest thing in finance. He waited.
He just let it compound for decades.
For decades on end.
So that gap between the gold coin skipping executive and the humble janitor, that's our mission for this deep dive. It proves financial success has shockingly little to do with intelligence and everything to do with behavior. It's a soft skill, a psychological discipline, not a hard science.
And if we agree on that finance is mainly behavior, then you have to realize that no one is truly crazy with money. They just have wildly different views.
Views that are anchored in their unique personal history.
Exactly. Your generation, your parents' income, the local economy you grew up in, and yes, pure random luck. All these things write your financial script.
That makes so much sense. Let's unpack that with a powerful historical contrast. Think about the Great Depression in the 1930s.
An event that our sources say marked millions of Americans inwardly for the rest of their lives. It created a generation of hoarders and pessimists.
But not everyone.
Not everyone. Take John F. Kennedy. When he was asked about his memories of the Depression, he admitted he had no firsthand knowledge.
He lived through it, but his family's fortune, one of the world's great fortunes, actually grew.
It was worth more during a deflationary period. They had bigger houses, more servants. He only learned about the Depression by, reading about it at Harvard. His financial anchor was safety. His peers was trauma.
And that leads right to the sheer dumb luck of when you were born. This has nothing to do with the discipline, just timing.
Right.
Consider two investors. If you were born in 1970, by the time you're in your late 20s, those critical formative years, the S&P 500 had increased nearly tenfold, adjusted for inflation.
That experience forms an intensely optimistic view. You think, the market is a magical money machine. It always goes up.
Okay, but wait. You're saying the only difference was just when they happened to be born.
Yeah.
That's wild. What about someone born, say, 20 years earlier?
Exactly. If you were born in 1950, the market literally went nowhere adjusted for inflation during those same impressionable years. You spent your teens and 20s just watching stagnation.
So you go through life believing the stock market is a high-risk gamble.
A place where returns are elusive. And that difference in mindset, anchored by pure chance, shapes every financial decision you make for the rest of your life. Here's another example of this anchored behavior that people often misjudge. the lottery ticket paradox.
Yeah.
Our sources show low-income households in the U.S. spend, on average, $412 a year on lottery tickets. That's 4 times the amount spent by the highest-income groups. And on the surface, that seems incredibly irrational, especially when you hear that 40% of Americans can't come up with $400 for an emergency.
Right. It seems crazy, but it's not.
No, the reason is deeply psychological, and it's a crucial insight. For people struggling with low wages, the prospect of saving enough for a house or good education, it just seems permanently out of reach.
Like a climb so steep it's impossible.
So buying a lottery ticket isn't an investment. It is paying for the tangible dream of escaping that reality.
Is buying hope.
Precisely. It's paying for the experience of imagining a life with the good stuff, the nice vacations, the new cars that higher earners already have and often take for granted. You're buying a momentary dream.
And one last critical point here. When it comes to personal finance, we are all basically newbies. The whole modern foundation of saving and investing is built on concepts that are practically infants.
Think about it. For most human history, people just worked until they died. This idea that every single person should be responsible for funding their own 30-year retirement is a profoundly recent cultural expectation.
And the tools are brand new. The 401k, the absolute backbone of American retirement. It didn't even exist until 1978.
Barely half a century old. And the Roth IRA. I was born in 1998. It's barely old enough to rent a car.
So it's no surprise we're often bad at this. We have no accumulated decades of experience, no cultural memory to rely on. We're building the plane while flying it.
Which makes understanding these soft skills absolutely essential. Speaking of things outside our control, let's transition now and talk about the siblings of outcomes in finance. Luck and risk. They're inescapable forces. And you can't respect one without equally respecting the other. They highlight how much external forces play a role, regardless of your effort.
And the origin story of Microsoft is the perfect illustration.
It really is. Bill Gates experienced what you could call 1 in a million luck just by going to the Lakeside School in Seattle. It was one of the only high schools in the entire world with an advanced computer terminal in 1968.
That is a huge, almost unfair advantage. But the story doesn't end there, because his best friend, Ken Evans, experienced the opposite. 1 in a million risk.
Ken was every bit as skilled, every bit as ambitious as Gates and Paul Allen. He was a shared business partner, a mind that could have easily been a Microsoft co-founder.
But he never got the chance. Right before high school graduation, he died in a mountaineering accident. One person gets the random gift of technology, the other gets the random tragedy of an accident. The lesson is profound. The world is too complex for 100% of your actions to dictate 100% of your outcomes. That randomness brings us to the ultimate soft skill for financial endurance: survival. Getting money requires optimism. It requires risk-taking. But keeping money, retaining that wealth long-term, requires the exact opposite. It requires deep humility and a healthy dose of fear.
The tragic case study of the legendary trader Jesse Livermore proves this. He was a titan of the market. He made the equivalent of over $3 billion during the 1929 crash by shorting the market.
Wait, let's quickly define that. What does shorting the market mean?
It means he was betting the market would go down. He sold borrowed shares, hoping to buy them back later at a much lower price. It was a massive, confident bet that paid off spectacularly.
His family thought they were ruined, but instead, they were fabulously rich. But then his confidence it overflowed.
Precisely. He was great at getting wealthy, but terrible at staying wealthy. Overwhelmed by his own genius, he made bigger and bigger bets, eventually lost everything, and tragically took his own life just 4 years later. He's a case study in non-survival. And survival connects directly to the greatest financial engine there is: compounding. Compounding only works if you can survive the inevitable ups and downs without being wiped out or forced to quit.
Which is why, when you analyze Warren Buffett's career, his success is less about being the single greatest investor ever,
and more about being a pretty good investor since he was 10 years old, and then just surviving consistently until he was 89. He started early and just didn't quit. I love that. It's so simple. They often joke the most powerful book on investing should be 1 page long, titled "Shut Up," and
Exactly. The key isn't maximizing returns, it's earning pretty good returns that you can actually stick with for the longest possible time. That stick-to-itiveness is infinitely more powerful.
And the numbers bear that out, right?
Absolutely. Research shows if you can just keep your cool and keep investing during the 22% of time the economy is in or near a recession, you can end up with 75% more money over time than people who sell out.
The ability to endure that uncertainty is the admission price for growth.
It is the fee you have to pay.
That's a perfect bridge. So let's talk about what that long-term success actually buys you. What's the highest dividend wealth really pays?
It's so often misunderstood. We believe the highest form of wealth is the ability to wake up every single morning and say, I can do whatever I want today.
Control over your time. That's it. Money's greatest intrinsic value, the thing that makes the biggest difference to your well-being, is its ability to give you control over your time. That autonomy is consistently the strongest predictor of life satisfaction. And that time control brings us to a crucial difference: being rich versus being wealthy. They're not the same thing. No, they're often opposites. Rich is a current high income. Rich is visible. You see the $100,000 car. Wealth, on the other hand, is hidden. It's income that was not spent.
Wealth is the option you haven't taken yet.
It's the flexibility. It's the money sitting untouched in a diversified portfolio.
And this highlights the paradox of signaling wealth. People buy the possessions, the Ferrari, the fancy watch, because they want admiration. They want respect.
But others rarely bypass admiring the car to admire the driver.
Yeah.
Instead, they just think, wow, if I had that car, it would look cool. If genuine respect is the goal, things like humility and kindness bring far more respect than horsepower ever will.
And this becomes dangerous when successful people fail to define enough.
That insatiable appetite for more, it pushes people to regret.
Take the tragic examples. Rajat Gupta, former CEO of McKinsey, already worth $100 million. Or Bernie Madoff, who was legally making $25 to $50 million a year from his legitimate business.
Both of them risked and lost everything because they were desperate for more. Gupta went to prison for insider trading because he wanted to be in the billionaire circle. Madoff risked it all on his Ponzi scheme.
They already had everything: wealth, freedom, prestige. But because they couldn't define enough, they risked ruin.
So the hardest financial soft skill is getting the goalpost to stop moving. Social comparison is an unwinnable battle. A rookie ball player making $500,000 compares himself to Mike Trout, who compares himself to Jeff Bezos.
The ceiling is so high, virtually no one can hit it.
You're running a marathon against people taking helicopters. The only way to win is to not fight. You have to accept that you might have enough, even if it's less than those around you. Enough is protection from ruin. Let's turn now to the final segment, focusing on practical application. Let's just acknowledge something important. You are not a spreadsheet. You are a screwed up, emotional person, and you have to manage your money accordingly. The goal shouldn't be to be coldly rational, because that's impossible to sustain. The goal should just be to be pretty reasonable.
Reasonable is realistic. It's forgiving of our flaws.
Yeah.
And you can stick with it for the long run.
Which is the only thing that matters. The great example is Nobel laureate Harry Markowitz, the man who literally invented the mathematical models for maximizing risk-adjusted returns.
He didn't even follow his own sophisticated math for his own money.
No, he didn't. When asked how he allocated his personal retirement funds, he said he split it 50-50 between stocks and bonds. He didn't do it to maximize his return. He did it to minimize his future regret.
So the guy who wrote the book on portfolio theory abandoned his own equations for peace of mind.
Exactly. He based his decision on maximizing how well he slept at night, not maximizing his dollar return. He knew he'd regret missing a big upswing just as much as he'd regret getting wiped out. That compromise is the definition of reasonable. Contrast that with a purely rational strategy. For example, a young person using 2.1 margin on stocks. And margin, just to be clear, means borrowing money to invest more. It doubles your potential gains, but also doubles your potential losses.
Mathematically, a young investor could take that risk. Even if they get wiped out, they could start over. But that's absurdly unreasonable for any human being.
No normal person could watch 100% of their savings evaporate and just keep going undeterred. That's why you have to build in a room for error, a margin of safety.
You have to plan on your plan, not going according to plan.
You have to protect yourself from the things that are too crazy to cross your mind.
Like the German tanks in Stalingrad defeated not by enemy fire, but because mice ate the electrical wiring in the engines. Nobody plans for mice.
Nobody plans for mice. Or pandemics, or a global financial crisis, and that's the point. The single biggest point of failure in most people's financial lives is sole reliance on a paycheck with no savings buffer. So this is the ultimate takeaway. Saving without a specific goal, not for a boat, but just saving, is your best hedge against life's ability to surprise the hell out of you at the worst possible moment. That savings gives you flexibility. It buys you time. That flexibility is an incalculable return on wealth that a dollar figure can never capture.
So we conclude this dive with the core costs of investing. Investing has a price, and that currency isn't dollars, it's volatility, fear, doubt, and uncertainty.
The key shift in mindset, the ultimate soft skill, is learning to view market declines as a fee. It's the admission price for long-term growth. It is not a fine, a penalty to be avoided.
If you try to avoid the fee, you end up paying double.
By selling at the bottom and locking in your losses.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? We've covered a lot of ground, from gold coins to janitors.
Well, the most important takeaways are pretty simple. Less ego leads to more wealth, driven mainly by your savings rate. Manage your money in a way that helps you sleep at night, prioritizing survival over maximizing returns.
Because if you don't survive, nothing else matters.
And critically, focus on increasing your time horizon to let compounding run wild.
We should also remember the end of history illusion. We know how much we've changed in the past decade, but we systematically underestimate how much our goals and desires will change in the next one.
That law student doesn't realize they might want to be a stay-at-home parent later, or that their career will burn them out. To combat that, avoid financial extremes.
Assuming you'll be happy with a very low income, or working endless hours for a high one.
Drastically increases the odds of regret. Instead, aim for moderation. Moderation in savings, in free time, in family time. That reasonable balance is far easier to stick with.
And finally, a provocative thought for you to consider. We said the highest dividend money pays is the ability to control your time, to only do the work you like, with people you like, when you want, for as long as you want.
If you achieve that level of independence tomorrow, what is the next thing you would do with your time that you couldn't do before? We'll leave that with you. That ability to choose is the real measure of financial success.